everybody. Today we're going to be doing Module 4, Lesson 4. So before we were doing fractions as division, we were doing those lessons. Now we're going to be taking a look at Lesson 4, which is just continuing our talks about fraction as division. And you should have your notes out in front of you. Again, we're going to be looking at some word problems, but instead of just looking at our numbers as just a fraction or just as a standard algorithm, we're also going to talk about the other ways we can look at our fractions or the numbers in a word problem using all of these different ways you see on the board right now. So what I'm just going to ask you to do as you're doing this video with me is just make sure that if I am underlining something in a word problem, please make sure you're doing that. And then as we are filling out each chart for each problem, please make sure you're filling out each section so you have something to look at when you move on to the problem set, because this chart is going to look very familiar to you once you get to that problem set. So let's get started with this first problem. It says 8 tons of gravel is equally divided between 4 dump trucks. How much gravel is in one truck? So these are similar to the problems from before because we're still talking about something getting divided and how much it's getting divided into. So we have 8 tons of gravel. It is being equally divided, and it's being divided between 4 trucks. And I want to find out how much is in one truck. So to do this, again, I want to create that fraction. We're actually going to start with that. With my fraction, my numerator, my number on top, is the number of things that I am dividing. So what am I dividing up? Well, I am dividing up this gravel, so I'm going to put that number on top, 8. And then I want to think about, well, what is it getting divided by? Well, this is getting divided by 4 dump trucks, so I put the number 4 underneath that. So our fraction for this problem is 8/4. Now, when you get to your problem set, you're going to notice that there's also a part that says division expression. I don't want you to get confused about that because all that's asking you is to write 8/4 as a division problem. And we hopefully remember how to do that from yesterday. Because when I look at this fraction, 8/4, what I can think of this as is 8 divided by 4. Because this fraction bar, remember, we can think of that as a division symbol. So we have 8 divided by 4, and that is now our division expression. Now, after that, we have this whole number space, but I'm going to kind of leave that alone for right now. And we're going to take a look at these tape diagrams. So you may remember tape diagrams from maybe Module 2. And with a tape diagram, we're going to start off by just drawing a nice big rectangle. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what this whole rectangle equals. What I want you to think about is, what are we dividing? We are dividing gravel, and that gravel is equal to 8 tons. So we're going to say that this whole tape diagram right here is equal to 8 tons. Now, this 8 tons of gravel is being divided into 4 different dump trucks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show in my picture how 8 tons is being divided into 4 equal parts. So we're going to cut it down in the middle, cut those in half, and cut those in half. And now what I have is I have 8 tons divided into 4 parts. And then what I would want to do is I would then want to figure out, well, how much is in each space? Well, I know that 8 divided by 4 is 2. So what this tells me, and I can even fill in just one box with the number 2, is that each dump truck has 2 tons of gravel in it, because 2 plus 2, which is 4, plus 2, which is 6, plus 2, which is 8, lets me know that each box would have 2 tons of gravel, which means that it is being evenly divided between all these trucks. Now, another way that I can check my answer is I can do a standard algorithm, and what we mean by that is just setting up this problem or this problem to look like a math problem, just like this. So we're setting up 8 divided by 4, and now just like we were doing the previous day, we're trying to figure out how many times can 4 go into 8. And don't forget those steps to help you with your division. So we're going to start with dividing. So how many times can 4 go into 8? Well, 4 can go into 8 2 times. Then we do 4 times 2, which gives me 8. Then we move on to subtraction. 8 minus 8 is 0. and then we bring down, but there's nothing to bring down, so we just look up here for our answer, which is 2. Now, we are almost done with this, but we also want to think about what whole numbers is my answer in between. So since my answer is 2, what I'm going to say is 2, and then I'm going to go up one more, and I'll say 2 or 3, and that would be what whole numbers my answer is in between. So that's all we need to do for this problem, and then if I wanted to, I could also write out my answer in a sentence. So I could say, in one truck, there are 2 tons of gravel. And that is how I would completely fill out my answer. So as you can see, there is lots of different ways that we can either look at our answer or help us get our problem set up to help us then find our answer. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to erase just a couple of parts from this because our next problem is actually going to be fairly similar. So go ahead and erase this, and then you guys just need to move on to problem number 2. So for problem number 2, we're now working with 5 tons instead of 8, and then it's equally being divided into 4 dump trucks still. And I still want to figure out how much is in one dump truck. So to do this, I am going to set up my division expression first this time. So what am I dividing up? I'm dividing gravel, and I have 5 tons of that. So we're going to have 5 divided by, and then I think about, well, what is my gravel being divided into? It's being divided into groups of 4. So I'm going to put a 4 right here. So I have 5 divided by 4. Now for my fraction, remember, we just have that fraction bar right there. And my numerator is what is being divided. Remember, what is being divided is the gravel. So I have 5 on the top, and how much is being divided by? Well, it's being divided into groups of 4, so we will put that on the bottom there. So then, I have my division expression, I have my fraction, we'll worry about this whole number later. Let's take a look at a tape diagram. So with my tape diagram, I know that this whole thing is equal to 5 tons because that is how much gravel I have, and then I'm going to divide it up. Then I have to remember, how much am I dividing it up by? Well, I'm dividing it into 4 groups. So again, I'm going to cut it in half and then cut those parts in half. So you see I have 4 groups. Now it may be a little bit difficult for you to figure out what 5 divided by 4 is, so that's why we're going to use this standard algorithm. This just kind of helps us visualize what is being divided and how it's getting divided. So if I take a look at this standard algorithm, I can use this division expression or fraction to help me create my standard algorithm. So I'm going to have 5 divided by 4, and we're going to start with our divide step. So how many times can 4 go into 5? Well, 4 can go into 5 one time. Then I do my multiply step. 4 times 1 is 4. Then I move on to my subtraction step. 5 minus 4 is 1. There's nothing to bring down, so I'm done with that. But I do have a remainder, so that means I'm going to add a fraction to this. And just like I showed you in previous problems, you're going to draw the little fraction bar next to your whole number so that we can create a mixed number. My remainder is going to be my numerator, and then what I divided by, 4, is going to be my denominator. So 1 1/4 is going to be my final answer, and what this lets me know is that each of these little spaces right here is equal to 1 1/4. 1 1/4. And when I go to answer my question and I ask you how much gravel is in one truck, you could say that there is 1 1/4 tons of gravel in one truck. And that would be our final answer. Now, real quick, we also need to look at our whole numbers. So we want to figure out what whole numbers our answers are in between. And if it helps you, you can think of that number line. So if I were to draw a really quick number line, I would have 1 right here, maybe split up 1, 2, oops, sorry. Maybe split this into fourths. So we have a 4th right here. So my answer is right here. And then when we think about what whole numbers my answer is in between, since my dot is right here, I have a whole number right here, which is 1. I have a whole number all the way over here, which is 2. So I would say 1 or 2. And that is the whole numbers. My answer is in between. So this chart is totally done. Please make sure you have all of it on your notes, because this will come in handy later on. Then at 5th grade, we're going to move on to problem number 3, and we're actually going to be done talking about gravel now, and we're going to be working on some ribbon. So for this ribbon, our ribbon, we have 3 meters of ribbon, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the important numbers on the board. We have 3 meters of ribbon, and it says that it's cut into 4 equal pieces. It's cut into 4 equal pieces to make flowers, and we want to find the length of each piece. So to do this, we're going to, again, make our division expression. And to make our division expression, what I'm first going to do is I'm going to see what am I dividing, and then how much am I dividing it by. So what am I dividing? I am dividing up this ribbon, so that would be 3 divided by, and then how much am I dividing it into? I'm dividing it into 4 equal pieces. So I have 3 divided by 4. Now when I go to make my fraction, what I'm going to do is I need to write 3 divided by 4. So I have my fraction. Remember, number on top is what I'm dividing. Number on the bottom is what I'm dividing by. Then we'll worry about our whole numbers a little bit later. And then we're going to take a look at our tape diagram. So we have our tape diagram. And we're going to think about, well, what does my whole tape diagram equal? What am I dividing? I'm dividing 3 meters of ribbon. And I'm dividing these 3 meters of ribbon into 4 equal parts. So we'll take 3 meters and we'll divide it into 4 equal parts like this. Now, just like before, it might be difficult for you to figure out what 3 divided by 4 is. So what I am going to do is I'm going to do a standard algorithm to help me out with this. But I want you to think, when I set up this problem, 3 divided by 4. Do we notice, and you may remember this from the Khan Academy video, that 3 divided by 4 equals 3/4. So maybe if I have 3 meters divided into 4 parts, that's just going to give me 3/4. And maybe 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 just equals our answer. So let's take a look at our standard algorithm. So we want to figure out how many times can 4 fit into 3. Well, 4 can't fit into 3 because it's too big. So we're actually going to put a 0 up here. And then we're going to multiply. We still need to do that step. 4 times 0 is 0. Then I need to subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. So technically, I have a mixed number situation. So I'm going to put this little line right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about, well, what is my remainder? My remainder is 3. So I'm going to put that remainder up in my numerator, and then my denominator is 4. So that lets me know that my answer is 3/4. So actually what I did here was correct. So sometimes you can look at a division expression, make it a fraction, and that's actually your answer for your tape diagram. And it shows you how many equal parts make up your whole. So, 5th grade, when you guys move on to your next problem today, let's do whole numbers. For our whole numbers, if I were to think about a number line again, I would have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I know my answer is at 3/4. So 1 would be right here, 0 would be right there. So my whole numbers are 0 or 1. And you'll see what I mean by doing this step once you guys get to your problem set. But before you do that, you're going to be working on the next problem. For this next problem, it says 14 gallons of water is used to completely fill 3 fish tanks. How many gallons of water will each tank hold? So wherever you see DE, that's where I'm asking for a division expression. So your division expression is going to be 14 divided by 3. And I'm going to give you a little hint on this one. If we have, just erase real fast. If I have 14 divided by 3. Then as a fraction, that would equal 14 over 3, which is technically my answer. It's just that, do I like my answer as a improper fraction? Probably not. So what is my actual answer going to be? So 5th grade, you guys are going to solve this problem on your own on the bottom, and if you need help, please let me know, and once you're done with this, please show me your work. Thank you for all your hard work today, and good luck.